cleaned the tank earlier. Yeah, actually the wine, so tartaric acid is actually where the starter comes from. Yeah. So when the wine actually is produced, the alcohol level changes the solubility of the tartaric acid. So what happens is we chill this down to make these acid crystals form and fall out.
How do you chill it?
We have a glycol system, so we have a big chilling unit out back. Whoa. So there's a jacket right here, so that's why that's like that.
Frozen in this.
Yeah. And then, so yeah, there's this tank, and then they do this jack out the outside, so it's a very thin.
You can really see here. Yeah. Nice build up.
That's the dimples are actually for support because it runs a little bit of pressure through here.
Of course.
But yeah, it's about we get it down to about 27 degrees. If you've ever seen the bottom of the wine bottle, you see those little ice crystals, it's like crystals. Yeah. That's actually tartaric acid. Americans are such quality consumers that we do it in here so that people see it in there.
Wow, 690 gallons of wine.
Yeah, that's actually the smallest tanks we have.
Really?
Smaller tanks. Yeah. Of the tank. So we go in there, we run what we call spray ball, hot water, caustic solution, and that breaks it down. So after he gets done with that, then he's going to go in there and sterilize the inside. So what we do is we do a iodine rinse. And it's a lot of, most brewers or winemakers use iodine. Sometimes you use chlorine, but chlorine causes a problem in wine sometimes.
Yeah.
So we use, well, you can have this problem called cork taint, trichloroanisole. So
heard that before.
Yeah, it's that musky smell that you get in wine. It kind of smells like a wet basement or like a wet book, like grandma's wet basement. You can actually fix that if you get a bottle at home and it has that problem. Get some saran wrap. A fair amount of saran wrap, put it in a carafe, pour the wine on top of it, and let it sit, it'll pull that out of there.
Oh.
So,
a little trick, hack, guys.
Yeah, little hack. That's, so you don't have to worry if you bought a bottle, it's gone bad, or it's not gone bad, it's actually a problem with the cork itself. You can do that and you don't have to worry about it, so that's kind of cool.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. In the cellars, most people would do that, where they just let it get cold in here.
Yeah.
It was probably, at one point in time here, it was probably 30 degrees in the cellar for weeks. So that's not the best thing. Yeah. Well, the barrels are all up there, which is the other thing. Was that?
How does that affect? Like, do you have to worry about the end game when that kind of happens? Like, how do you can't put the heat on, right? Because it.
Yep. Well, one of the reasons you can't put the heat on is, well, you can keep the heat on to some degree, but also this is one of the reasons I have this on and I've got fans around, because if you get a tank too warm, it can actually affect the flavor. It'll. How do you put it this way? Dimethyl sulfide, which is cream corn, which you get in a lot of beers sometimes. If you warm up a wine tank, chemical reactions can happen. You can start producing that dimethyl sulfide. So I've seen it happen in a couple of tanks, not here, but in other people's. And they're like, what happened? Like, you got a hot spot in the corner. You need, that's what it was.
And that whole batch is ruined.
It does not ruin, but it's,
it's going to change it.
Yeah, it's not something.
Goes from like a winner to a mediocre.
Yeah, exactly. It's still palatable, it's still quaffable, it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not the best thing in the world.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Can we see the barrels?
Yeah, sure. Sulfites, so that's one of the big things is people are like, is it low sulfite? So we try to use as minimal as we can, but the sulfur actually protects the wine from microbacteria or microorganisms that want to grow, and also keeps the wine from oxidizing.
And this was all part of, like, you obviously went to school for this sort of stuff, and there was a lot of chemistry.
Yeah, Jack of many trades, expert at none. So biology, microbiome, chemistry, a lot of that. I've learned a lot of HVAC and electrical work since I've been
randomly,
here.
right?
Randomly, like, oh yeah, that broke. We got to fix that now.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is this is basic chemistry. Everyone did this in 8th, 9th grade. What you're doing is the wine's in here, I added some acid to it that's going to change the chemicals and make it come out as gas. Go over here and we have a pH indicator, so it shifted over.
Yeah, it wasn't that color about 5 minutes ago, right?
It was this blue color.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think it was blue about 5 minutes ago.
And then what we'll end up doing is, based on that, that'll run for a little bit of time, and then I come over to this guy. And I have, so that's going to be an acid in there. And I get a base. This would actually run longer than that, but for the idea of what's happening, take this, I come come back over here and I add.
The laboratory. I love the laboratory.
So it's basically this is titration. So, but it's gonna go back to that blue. Once I get that original blue color back.
Whoa! Would you look at that? And what are you exactly looking for here?
I'm looking for that color change. So when I know that, when I get that color, there's that blue I want, which is what it was over here originally.
Yeah.
I can go and say, okay, I use this amount. I do a little calculation, and that tells me how much sulfur is in the wine. And based on how much, what the pH of the wine is, I need more sulfur to protect it. So as the pH gets higher, I need more free sulfur to get this one particular form of free sulfur, molecular free sulfur, to protect the wine. So low acidity wines, dry white wines with their high or low pH are always the best ones for people who don't like sulfur or have sulfur allergies, because you need the least amount of sulfur to protect the wine at the time.
Wow.
So people say like they have, reds give them headaches. Sometimes it's tannins. A lot of times it's actually the sulfites, because
Max, he drinks wine and gets a headache a lot of
yeah.
times.
So especially if you're drinking dry reds, and Jess was talking the other day about Leonetti he's like, yeah, certain ones. So if you get up here, most red wines are typically hot here. So to have that same amount of protection, I need 50 parts per million of free sulfur. Whereas if I'm down here, like a dry white, like that Riesling is going to be closer to probably like 3.1. I need 20 parts. So that's it's more than that's more than twofold.
Yeah,
It's a big
that's a really big difference. Yeah, you don't just.
So that's what I've always said is if people have problems with sulfur levels, it's go dry white wines.
That's
with
cool.
low pH.
We're showing the boiling point difference between.
So wine is mostly water, a little acidity, a little sugar. For dry wines, I would put in about 20 mils of water in here, distilled water. Check the boiling point, which around here is 99.3 degrees, pretty much on the regular. 99.2 or 99.4, depending on if it's a higher or low pressure day. Once that's done, I put in 50 mils of wine, check the boiling point of that.
Now, do a lot of winemakers pick this region in specific because of the pressure that we have?
No, it's just
they can change the boiling point.
Yeah, just the boiling point. It's
like in food, the boiling
Denver.
point changes
Exactly.
very much. Like in Denver and those places, Montana, for you to go up.
Yeah, so that's just the reason we check it is because that's going to give us this. And then what I do over here, which is so very simple. So, okay, the wine boiled at today, say it boiled at 99.4. I set that little thing right there. And then I come over and say, all right, what did my wine boil at? It boiled at 91 degrees, so it is at 10.1% alcohol. And that's it.
That's so simple.
It is really simple.
That's
yeah.
There's a lot of basic chemistry you're showing me.
It's exceedingly basic chemistry.
Yeah, so it's not like you're like, I had to take tons of organic chemistry classes or anything like that to get to this point.
No, unfortunately they changed the requirements. I did take organic, and the next semester, you guys don't take organic chemistry anymore. I'm like, that was the worst experience I've ever had in my entire life.
Everyone I know that's taken it is like, it's the worst class in the world.
Yeah, it is the worst class.
Most failed class.
It's horrid. The only thing that was funnier, I was actually thinking about getting a master's or going to brewing. They take a thing called PChem. Physical chemistry, they say organic chemistry looks like a preschool class compared to that.
My roommate in college took it. Said it was a lot harder than organic. Actually went to.
Everything you get outside of my mind, I'm like, how can it get harder than that?
It
I helped
does.
to make my decision not to follow into.
That's
I'll just keep doing this. This is good.
So what's up with the gallon of wine? Sorry, I see it over here. And I'm like, you would just keep a gallon of wine on hand at all times.
Well, so we use distilled water instead of using, throwing these things out. We'll actually take this up in top barrels with it. So we can go up there. I'll show you guys. One filtering unit. So you always have two, and then is distributed to the plates, and then goes to the pads and comes out clean. It's collected on this side. It comes out on this side.
Whoa.
Wine, pretty much all these equipments. Always
See, everything has a tasting. You're obviously tasting a lot.
Constantly tasting things. You get these things ready. You don't really have to do it so much anymore because the technology is better.
Yeah.
But it used to be where you get these things ready with water, so you wet the filters down.
Yeah.
And as you start running the wine through, you're tasting to make sure, okay, I don't taste any water anymore. Now we can go to the tank.
Wow. So a lot of old school methods still apply to today's technology, even though it's gotten a little bit more advanced.
Very much so. And actually, I'll show you a piece of equipment. This is really old. This is really old school. I mean, basically, the pads themselves are cellulose fiber pads. So it's just cellulose fibers laid on top of each other to form a mat, and then you run the wine through it. And you can buy different size pour sizes. So when the wine is just after it's done, it's still got a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah.
And then you can keep kind of getting it down further and further and further until it's crystal clear.
Whoa.
And the smallest, actually I can go down to about 0.45 microns. Flattens out.
Oh, you can hear it. Wow, it's like serious sediment.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's tart. So those tartrate crystals are in here. So the little bits of yeast and leaves and stuff.
That's cool.
You can really smell it too as he's agitating it.
Yeah, that's cool.
There it is. Nothing. I can take a look in there now.
And does the sediment stick to the bottom of it, or?
It's just kind of coats a layer, but now, nope, that was just good. And then now, if you look in there, it's all cloudy. So that's when I'm stirring those yeast back up. And what they're doing is, as they die, it's called autolyzing or autolysis. They're breaking down. They're giving off little bits of proteins, and enzymes are coming out into the wine and just changing things. So it just kind of gives a richness to the quality. And this is something we do. And we just started doing this year. So there's 3 barrels over here that have negatives on them, which I never put sulfur in the wine. So there was still active cultures in the yeast. So this year what we did was just put raw juice. We do not do a lot of, we inoculate with commercial yeast so we know what's going on. But I've used these barrels before and I put the yeast that exists in there myself. So this year, instead of buying yeast and putting yeast into these things, I just put the raw juice on the yeast from last year and let it go. And there's a difference. It was a slower fermentation, nicer flavors, just a little something different. So
That's cool.
Yeah, and it saves you on yeast.
Why did you get into this?
Got into it. I was actually wanting to be a brewer. My father's been in the brewing industry my entire life, since I was like 4. So
Where does he work?
Anheuser-Busch, actually.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, so he worked for Miller when I was a kid, and now works for Anheuser-Busch. I was a non-traditional student. I did great in high school, was going to be a doctor, all that kind of bullshit. That didn't work out.
Yeah.
I had too much fun in college the first couple years.
Yeah.
And then he went away on a business trip, came back and had a t-shirt for me, a microbrewery. I was like, literally had an epiphany. I'm like, I could do that for a living, I could get a job. So I started looking into it for the winemaking, or the brewing side of things, and Cornell, I found out had the program they're starting. It's like, I'll piggyback on the winemaking program. I could stay in the area. And then I just fell in love with wine a little more. It's a little more mysterious. I mean, to me, winemaking is like cooking and brewing is like baking.
Gotcha.
Brewing is this amount of
great way to
time, temp, these ingredients, at this exact measurement. Where winemaking is, there's a lot of the science and fermentation still there, but it's, there's a little more wiggle room.
You can't wiggle in baking.
No, you cannot wiggle.
This is how much flour goes in there. If you go over that, you're gonna come up with a different thing.
Exactly. That's
just
exactly
how
what it is. So,
The family's been here since I bought property in 1852. They've been farming this land around here. So they did apples and peaches. You can buy peaches and cherries from the other side of the family. So they've been here since 1852. The winery opened in 85. So last year's our 30th. One of the older ones.
Yeah. You guys have been here for like a minute.
Yeah. So essentially, just put it in there and wine. So this is the stuff. Like I said, that's all that stirred up stuff.
Wow.
So here's between that. You could
Stirred.
Then how often every day you come up here and try these, or is it like every other day?
I'll try them once a week.
Once a week.
And then I just, hey, I really like the way that's tasting, or stir this one a little more. Like this one got stirred last week, which gives you the vast difference between the two.
Yeah.
stirred, not stirred. So
If you guys want to try them, they're basically, these barrels are pretty much brother barrels. They're the same age, they're the same toast, same treatment.
Oh, that's way drier.
Is that the one that he didn't shake?
that's the one that's not shaken.
That's one that's not shaken. This
That's
one's
one
been
that's shaken.
Oh,
shaken.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not shake, stirred. Yeah.
Stirred, yes.
James Bond
Yes.
proves this one.
Whoa.
That's very dry.
Whoa, super dry.
Yep, dry, acidic, and it'll smooth itself out over a period of time. But yeah, so these, the juice
I want to
one-
try them.
Oh, there is a difference though. There is a difference between the sediment you can taste it versus this one. It's like
And it makes different flavors come out.
it does, yeah.
So that
I feel like I can
obviously,
taste the grapes more in this one. And then without
That's
this,
kind of what
it'd
you want.
Yeah.
Yep,
so-
that's the idea.